I was supposed to die that night. Rain pounding the windshield, headlights too close, metal screaming as my car flipped end over end. Doctors said 5% chance I'd survive. I flatlined twice. Lost a baby I didn't even know I was carrying. Lost pieces of myself I can never get back. But something refused to let go. This isn't just a crash story. It's the raw, ugly, beautiful truth of clawing your way back from rock bottom. Guilt, grief, forgiveness, and the one brutal decision that rewrote my entire future. If you've ever felt broken beyond repair, watch this. Because I survived the crash that should have killed me. And what came after? That's where the real story begins.
The rain came down in sheets that night, the kind that makes you feel like the sky is personally angry at the earth. Not a gentle drizzle that taps politely on your windshield. This was a full-on assault, fat drops hammering the roof of my old Honda Civic like they wanted to punch through. October 15, 2023. I remember the exact date because I'd circled it on my mental calendar for weeks. The night I finally said the words out loud to someone other than my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I'd driven up to my sister Jenna's place in Hudson Valley, about 2 hours north of the city. She lives in one of those quaint little towns with brick sidewalks and coffee shops that still use chalkboards. I needed to get out of our cramped Brooklyn apartment, away from the silence that had become louder than any argument. Mark, my husband of 8 years, had been coming home late, smelling like someone else's perfume mixed with cheap whiskey. I'd ignored it for months, telling myself it was stress from his job, telling myself I was imagining things. But denial only stretches so far before it snaps. That afternoon, I'd packed a small duffel, nothing dramatic, just enough clothes for a few days, and driven up without telling him. Jenna met me at the door with a bottle of red already open and that look in her eyes that said she'd known for a long time. We sat on her screened porch, rain drumming on the metal roof overhead, and I spilled everything. The late-night texts I'd seen on his phone, the work trips that never added up, the way he'd stopped touching me like I was something precious and started touching me like I was an obligation. "I'm leaving him," I said, the words tasting like metal in my mouth. "For real this time." Jenna didn't say, "I told you so." She just reached across the wicker table and squeezed my hand so hard it hurt in the best way. "You deserve better, Sarah. You always have." We talked until the wine was gone and the rain got heavier. Around 10:30, I hugged her goodbye, promised I'd call when I got home, and climbed back into the car. The drive south on I-87 usually felt peaceful. Dark fields on either side, occasional headlights slicing through the night. But that night, the storm turned the highway into something treacherous. Water pooled in the lanes, tires hissed, wipers slapped back and forth at full speed and still couldn't keep up. I kept the radio low, some classic rock station playing Tom Petty on repeat. I won't back down. I almost laughed at the irony. My phone sat in the center console, screen dark. I texted Jenna one last time before pulling out. "Heading home, love you, I'm really doing this." She replied with a string of heart emojis and a fist bump. I felt lighter than I had in years. Scared, yeah, but free. The clock on the dash read 11:42 when I noticed the headlights in my rearview. Bright, too close. A big pickup. Black or dark blue, I couldn't tell through the rain, riding my bumper like it wanted to climb into my trunk. I tapped the brakes lightly, a universal back-off signal. It didn't. Instead, it swerved into the left lane, accelerated, then jerked back toward me. My heart slammed into my ribs. Adrenaline flooded everything. I gripped the wheel with both hands, knuckles white. "Come on, just pass me." He didn't pass. He veered again, harder this time. Maybe he was drunk, maybe texting, maybe just an asshole in a hurry. I'll never know. All I know is the front right corner of his truck caught my rear left fender. The world exploded. Metal shrieked like something alive. Glass shattered inward in a glittering storm. My car spun, once, twice, tires screaming on wet asphalt. I felt the suspension give, the chassis lift, and then we were airborne, flipping. The roof hit pavement first. Sparks, more glass. My seatbelt dug into my chest like a blade. Something hot and wet ran down my face. Blood, I realized later. The airbag punched me so hard I tasted copper. Then the rolling stopped. I hung upside down, suspended by the belt, rain pouring through the missing windshield. Headlights from passing cars swept over me in slow motion. Horns blared in the distance. My left leg didn't feel like anything. My right arm was pinned at a weird angle. Breathing hurt, like someone had parked a truck on my ribs. I heard voices outside, muffled by the storm. "Jesus Christ! Call 911! She's upside down! Get her out!" Sirens wailed closer. Red and blue lights painted the inside of my wrecked car. Someone, maybe a firefighter, reached through the shattered driver's window. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Stay with us." I tried to speak. Nothing came out except a wet rasp. My vision tunneled. Black spots danced at the edges. They cut the belt. I dropped, hard, onto what used to be the roof. Pain detonated everywhere at once. Spine, pelvis, head. Someone yelled, "She's bleeding bad! Pressure on the abdomen!" Hands pressed. I screamed, or tried. Then the world grayed out. I came to in fragments on the ambulance ride. Beeping monitors. A woman's voice saying, "BP's crashing. Push fluids." Another voice, "She's in VTAC. Charging." Electricity ripped through my chest. My body arched. Darkness again. They told me later I flatlined twice. Once for 47 seconds, once for almost a minute and a half. The paramedics shocked me back both times. The ER team at Albany Med took one look at the scans and called it unsurvivable. Fractured C5 and C7 vertebrae, shattered L4, completely pulverized pelvis, massive internal bleeding from a lacerated spleen and liver, traumatic brain injury with subdural hematoma. They gave family, when Jenna arrived screaming, less than a 5% chance I'd make it through surgery. But I did. I woke up 48 hours later in the ICU, tubes everywhere, machines breathing for me at first. My sister was there, eyes swollen, holding my hand like it might disappear. Mark showed up too, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He tried to talk. I turned my face away. Even half dead, I remembered why I'd left. The doctors kept shaking their heads in that puzzled way doctors do when statistics lie. "She's fighting," one said. "We don't see this kind of resilience often." I didn't feel resilient. I felt broken, hollow, terrified. But I was breathing. Rain still tapped against the hospital window that first morning I was conscious enough to notice it. Soft now, almost apologetic. I stared at the ceiling tiles and asked the only question that mattered. Why me? Why was I still here? I had no answers. Not yet. But something, some stubborn, angry spark buried under all the pain, refused to let go. That spark was going to cost me more than I ever imagined, and it was going to save me in ways I couldn't yet understand.
The first thing I noticed when consciousness really clawed its way back was the smell. Bleach so sharp it stung the inside of my nose, mixed with something metallic. Blood, maybe, or just the ghost of it. Underneath that, a faint sweetness, like someone had tried to cover death with cheap vanilla air freshener. Beeps came next. Not one machine, but a whole orchestra of them. Steady heart monitor, erratic ventilator at first, then the drip-drip of the IV pump, the soft whoosh of oxygen through a nasal cannula once they took the tube out of my throat. Every sound felt amplified, like my skull had turned into an echo chamber. I couldn't move, not really. My head was locked in some kind of foam brace, my arms strapped loosely to the bed rails so I wouldn't yank out lines in my sleep, or delirium. Below my neck, everything was numb at first, then pins and needles, then fire. Real fire, the kind that makes you wish for numbness again. They told me later the spinal fractures had bruised the cord badly enough that sensation came and went like bad cell service. 1 minute I could feel my toes twitch, the next, nothing existed below my waist. The room was dim, lit mostly by the blue-green glow of monitors and a single fluorescent strip someone had mercifully turned low. Curtains separated me from the rest of the ICU bay, but I could hear the other patients. An old man groaning, a woman coughing wetly, nurses murmuring in low, urgent tones. Time didn't move the way it should. Minutes stretched into hours. Hours collapsed into seconds. I'd drift off on fentanyl, wake up gasping, convinced the car was flipping again. The same loop. Rain, headlights, impact, darkness. Over and over. Jenna was there almost constantly at first. She'd pulled a recliner right up to the bed rail, her hoodie bunched under her head like a pillow. Her eyes were permanently red-rimmed, makeup long gone. She talked to me even when I couldn't answer. About dumb stuff mostly. How the neighbor's dog kept stealing socks off the laundry line. How she'd finally tried that new Thai place downtown and it was life-changing. Anything to fill the silence. When the nurses came in to turn me, to prevent bed sores, they said, she'd hold my hand and whisper, "You're doing great, sis. You're so strong." Mark showed up too. Day 3 or 4, I lost track. He stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed in. Clean-shaven, wearing the navy button-down I'd bought him for our anniversary 2 years earlier. He looked smaller somehow, hollowed out. "Sarah," he started, voice cracking on the second syllable. I turned my face toward the window. Rain streaked the glass in slow, fat trails. I didn't have the energy for anger yet, but I had enough to refuse him. He tried again. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For not being there. For all of it." The nurse adjusting my IV glanced over, then away. Awkward. I rasped out my first real word since the crash. "Get out." He didn't argue, just nodded once like he'd expected it, and backed away. The curtain swished closed behind him. Jenna squeezed my fingers so hard I felt it through the morphine fog. The nurses were the real heroes. There was Maria, night shift, who sang softly in Spanish while she changed dressings, old boleros that made the beeping feel less mechanical. There was Jamal, who looked like he could bench press a Buick, but spoke in the gentlest voice I'd ever heard, explaining every procedure like I was still a person, not just a body on a bed. "We're gonna get that central line out today, Sarah. You ready to feel a little less like a pincushion?" They talked about me in the third person a lot when they thought I was asleep. "She's a fighter. Vitals are stabilizing, again. Spine looks better on the repeat MRI than we expected." I hated the word miracle. Doctors threw it around like confetti. It's a miracle she survived the initial impact. Miracle the hematoma didn't cause permanent brain damage. Miracle she's weaning off the vent so fast. I wanted to scream that miracles don't leave you paralyzed and scarred and empty, but I didn't have the breath for it. One night, maybe week 2, the priest came. I'm not Catholic, barely anything anymore, but the chaplain on call thought it might help. Father Daniel, gray hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He didn't push religion, just sat and asked if I wanted to talk. I shook my head, no. Then, after a long silence, I whispered, "Why me?" He didn't give me platitudes. No, God has a plan. Instead, he said, "Sometimes survival isn't the end of the story, Sarah. It's the beginning of a harder one. The question isn't why you lived. It's what you're going to do with the time you've been given." I stared at him. Tears leaked sideways into my hair. He patted my hand, careful of the IV, and left without asking for a prayer. That night, the nightmares got worse. I dreamed of the truck driver. I still didn't know his name, nobody would tell me yet, but in the dream I saw his face clearly. Young, maybe 25, terrified eyes wide in the split second before impact. He mouthed something I couldn't hear. Then, the crash. But this time I watched from outside my body, saw the car crumple like tinfoil, saw myself hanging limp. I woke up screaming, monitor shrieking. Maria rushed in, held my shoulders until the panic ebbed. "Shh, mija, you're safe. You're here." But was I? The questions started then. Small at first, then relentless. Why had I lived when the stats said I shouldn't? Why did my body keep pulling itself back from the edge? And the darkest one, did I even want to? They moved me out of ICU after 17 days. Step-down unit. Still critical, but breathing on my own. Eating soft food through a straw. Jenna brought me a tiny stuffed bear from the gift shop. Ridiculous pink thing with a heart on its paw. "For when I'm not here," she said. I stared at it and thought, when you're not here, I'm alone with this new version of myself. The one who might never walk again. The one who lost 8 years to a man who didn't deserve them. The one who almost died because she finally decided to live. I didn't cry then. The tears had dried up somewhere between the operating room and the recovery bed. But the spark, that angry, stubborn thing, flickered brighter. I didn't know what came next. Rehab, more surgeries, more pain. Secrets I hadn't even uncovered yet. All I knew was this. Time had stopped in that wrecked car. And now it was starting again, whether I was ready or not.
Rehab started in the basement of Albany Med, a windowless world of fluorescent lights, rubber mats, and the constant metallic clank of parallel bars. They wheeled me down there on day 23, still in a halo brace that made my head feel like it was floating above someone else's body. The physical therapist's name was Carla, mid-40s, short-cropped hair, arms like coiled ropes from years of lifting patients who didn't want to be lifted. She looked at my chart, then at me, and said the same thing every new therapist says. "We're going to get you moving, Sarah, 1 inch at a time." 1 inch sounded impossible. They started with sitting. Not standing, God no, just propped up in bed with the head elevated to 45 degrees. Even that made the room spin. Blood pressure tanked, vision grayed at the edges. Carla and 2 techs held me like I was made of cracked porcelain. "Breathe through it," she said. "In through the nose, out through the mouth." I tried. Mostly I just whimpered. Sweat soaked the back of my gown in seconds. After 3 minutes, they laid me flat again, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. That was day 1. Week 4, they got me into a tilt table, strapped me in like a crash test dummy, slowly cranked me upright. The world tilted with me. Gravity felt like betrayal. My legs, still mostly numb, hung useless. Blood pooled in places it wasn't supposed to. Black spots danced. I passed out twice before they got the angle right. Carla never flinched. "That's progress," she said when I came to. "You stayed conscious longer the second time." Progress. The word tasted bitter. The mirror incident happened around month 3. They'd moved me to the main rehab wing by then, a brighter place with big windows overlooking a courtyard nobody ever used. One afternoon, Carla wheeled me to the full-length mirror in the corner of the therapy gym. "Time to meet the new you," she said gently. I hadn't seen myself since the night of the crash. Not really. Hospital bathrooms had those tiny vanity mirrors that only show your face if you lean in close. I'd avoided them. She positioned me in front of the glass. I stared. The woman looking back wasn't me. Or she was, but broken. A shaved patch on the left side of my head where they drilled to relieve pressure. A jagged scar ran from my left temple down my cheekbone, pink and raised, like someone had drawn it with a hot wire. Another across my collarbone from emergency surgery. My right eye drooped slightly. Nerve damage, they said, might improve. My neck was thick with a foam collar now instead of the halo. Shoulders hunched forward like I was protecting something that was already gone. I looked like a car wreck that had learned to sit up. I reached up, slow, trembling, and touched the scar on my face. Felt nothing at first, then a dull throb. Tears came, fast and hot. I didn't sob, just leaked. Carla stood behind me, hands on the wheelchair handles. She didn't say, "It'll fade," or "You're still beautiful." She just let me look. "That girl died in the crash," I whispered. Carla nodded once. "Maybe, but this one's still breathing, and she's got work to do." Jenna brought old photos the next week. Polaroids from college, snapshots from our wedding, beach trips with Mark before everything soured. She spread them on the bedside table like evidence. "Remember this?" she asked, pointing to one of me laughing on a pier, wind in my hair. I shoved them away, hard. They scattered across the floor. "Stop trying to make me that person again. She's gone." Jenna picked them up without a word, but her eyes were wet when she left. The news about the truck driver came a few days later. My lawyer, a kind-eyed woman named Rachel, who wore sensible flats and carried too many files, sat on the edge of my bed. His name was Ethan Caldwell, 26, from Schenectady. Blood alcohol was .14, speedometer pegged at 85 in a 55 zone when he hit you. I waited for the rest. He didn't make it, died on scene. His family, they're filing a wrongful death suit against you, claiming you contributed, maybe distracted driving, maybe speeding. We'll fight it. The evidence is overwhelmingly on our side. Dashcam footage from a semi behind you shows him swerving first. But they're grieving. Grief makes people do stupid things. I stared at the ceiling. Ethan Caldwell, 26. younger than me, probably had a mom who still called him every Sunday, a girlfriend, dreams he never got to finish, and now he was gone because he got behind the wheel drunk. Guilt hit like a second crash, slower, deeper. Had I been distracted? I'd glanced at my phone once or twice on the drive home, not texting while moving, but checking Jenna's last reply at a red light that turned green. Had that half second cost us both? Could I have seen him coming sooner, swerved harder, braked instead of accelerating out of instinct? The what-ifs looped endlessly. Nights got worse after that. I'd wake screaming, convinced the truck was still coming, heart rate alarms blaring, nurses rushing in with Ativan. PTSD, the psych consult called it. They upped my meds, I started asking for extra, hid a few under my tongue when they weren't looking. Not to die, not exactly, just to sleep without reliving it. One morning, Carla caught me staring at the pull cup like it was a lifeline. She sat on the mat beside my wheelchair. "You thinking about checking out early?" I didn't answer. She leaned in. "I've seen people quit. I've seen people fight and still lose, but I've never seen someone with your kind of stubbornness make it this far just to give up now. You want to hate yourself for surviving? Fine, but do it on your feet, or at least trying to get there." She stood, offered her hands. "Parallel bars today, 10 steps, no excuses." I took her hands, shaky, angry, terrified. She spotted me between the bars. My legs, still weak, still half numb, trembled like newborn deer. I gripped the cold metal until my knuckles bleached. First step, agony shooting up my spine. Second, my right knee buckled. I caught myself on the bars, gasping. Carla didn't let go. Again. I took another, then another. 5 steps in, my arms gave out. I collapsed forward. She caught me before I hit the mat, held me there while I sobbed, ugly, snotty sobs that echoed in the empty gym. "That's 5, she said quietly. 5 more than yesterday." I cried harder, not just from pain, from everything. The scars, the guilt, the husband who wasn't there, the future I couldn't picture. But I didn't quit. Not that day. Later, alone in my room, I stared at the ceiling again. The questions hadn't gone away. Why me? Why him? Why any of this? But for the first time, a new one slipped in. What if I kept going? Just one more step, one more breath, one more morning. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was defiance. And sometimes that's enough to start with.
By month 4, the rehab routine had settled into something almost predictable. Wake at 6 a.m. to the clatter of breakfast trays, blood pressure check, pain meds, then down to the gym by 8:30 for Carla's version of torture disguised as therapy. Sit-to-stand drills, leg presses with weights so light they felt insulting. Balance work on foam pads that made my ankles wobble like jello. I'd grit my teeth through it, count the reps out loud to keep from screaming, and collapse back into the wheelchair afterward, soaked in sweat and shaking. The body was healing, slowly, grudgingly, but the mind was a different story. Therapy sessions with Dr. Ellis, the psychologist, happened twice a week in a small beige room that smelled faintly of lavender from the diffuser she kept running. She was patient in that practiced way therapists are, never pushing too hard, always leaving long silences for me to fill. Most days, I filled them with surface stuff. How the scar on my cheek itched when the heat kicked on, how I hated the way hospital coffee tasted like burnt rubber, how Jenna was starting to look at me like I might actually walk out of here someday. But one Tuesday in early February, something cracked open. We were doing EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. She had me follow her fingers side to side while I pictured the crash. Rain, headlights, the sickening lurch. I'd done it before, usually the images blurred after a few sets. This time, they sharpened. I saw my phone in my hand, not just holding it, tapping. The glow of the screen lighting my face in the dark car. I'd texted Jenna right after leaving her place. "I'm done. I'm leaving him for good. On my way home."
Sent. Then, without thinking, I'd opened another thread, a number with no name attached, just digits. The memory hit like a slap, fingers flying over the keys. Meet me tomorrow. We need to talk about the baby. Baby? My eyes stopped tracking Dr. Ellis's fingers. The room tilted. Sarah, her voice was calm but concerned. What just came up? I couldn't speak at first. My mouth opened, closed, heart hammering so hard I thought the monitor in the hall would start alarming. I texted someone about a baby. She leaned forward slightly. Do you remember who? No, but I remember the feeling. Panic, secret, like I was hiding something huge. We paused the session. She got me water, let me breathe. Then she asked the obvious question. Could you have been pregnant? I laughed, short, bitter. No way, I would have known. I mean, I was on the pill. Mark and I hadn't even, not in months. But doubt crept in like cold air through a cracked window. That afternoon, after Carla's session, I asked the nurse practitioner on the floor to run every test they could think of. Blood work, hormone levels, ultrasound if needed. She looked at me funny, why now, but ordered it anyway. Results came back the next morning. Positive for HCG, 6 weeks at the time of the crash, give or take. Miscarriage confirmed by the trauma and blood loss. The baby had been there, tiny, forming, alive, and gone before I even knew. I sat in my hospital bed staring at the lab printout like it was written in another language. 6 weeks. That put conception around late August. Mark had been on a business trip to Chicago then. I'd stayed home, worked late most nights. There'd been one evening, a rare night when he came home early, apologetic, wanting to make things right. We ended up in bed. Mechanical, no passion, just two people going through the motions. I thought nothing of it. But there was another possibility, one I'd buried so deep I almost convinced myself it never happened. His name was Alex, a colleague from the marketing firm where I worked before the crash. We'd been flirting for months, innocent at first, then not. Coffee turned into drinks after work, drinks turned into a hotel room one rainy Thursday in September. It was quick, desperate, guilty. I told myself it was a one-time thing. I went back to Mark the next day and acted normal. Alex and I never spoke of it again. He transferred to the Boston office 2 weeks later. I hadn't thought about him since the accident, hadn't let myself. Now the math lined up too perfectly. I didn't cry right away. I just felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left the shell. The baby, my baby, had died in the crash I caused, or the crash Ethan caused, or fate caused, or God, if he was watching and decided this was the price for my sins. I stopped eating. The trays came, I pushed them away. Carla noticed first. You need fuel to rebuild muscle, Sarah. I shrugged. Dr. Ellis noticed next. This is grief layered on trauma. It's normal to shut down. Nothing felt normal. I started refusing PT, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every choice, leaving Mark that night, texting Alex without thinking, getting in the car at all. The guilt was a living thing now, coiled tight around my ribs, squeezing harder every time I breathed. One night, I took the extra oxycodone I'd been hoarding, 5 pills, enough to blur everything into nothing. I swallowed them dry, waited for the warmth to spread, for the world to soften and fade. I didn't want to die, exactly. I just wanted to stop feeling. Jenna found me like that, half-conscious, pupils pinned, breathing shallow. She screamed for nurses. They pumped my stomach, gave Narcan, hooked me back up to monitors. When I woke, she was sitting there, face buried in her hands. "Why?" she whispered. I looked at her, really looked, and saw how much older the last few months had made her. "I lost a baby I didn't know I had," I said, voice cracked. "And I think it was his, not Mark's." She didn't flinch, just reached for my hand. "Then we grieve it, together. But you don't get to check out, not after everything you've already survived." I cried then. deep, wrenching sobs that hurt my ribs and pulled at every scar. She held me until the storm passed. The next morning, I asked Carla to wheel me back to the parallel bars. I didn't want to. Every part of me wanted to stay in bed and disappear. But something, anger maybe, or just bone-deep stubbornness, pushed me up. I gripped the bars, legs trembling, took one step, then another. The baby, Hope, I started calling her in my head, deserved better than a mother who quit. And maybe, just maybe, so did I. The darkness wasn't gone. It still waited in the corners, ready to pull me under. But for the first time since the crash, I decided I wasn't going down without a fight.
Month 5 felt like drowning in slow motion. The rehab wing had become too familiar. The same scuffed linoleum floors, the same motivational posters about one day at a time that I wanted to rip down, the same fluorescent hum that drilled into my skull 24 hours a day. My body was progressing on paper. I could stand for 30 seconds unassisted, take 6 shuffling steps with a walker before my legs turned to rubber. Carla called it functional gains. I called it torture with documentation. But inside, I was unraveling. The revelation about Hope, the baby I'd lost without ever knowing her heartbeat, had hollowed me out. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a tiny, unfinished life erased in the same instant metal tore through my car. Grief doesn't announce itself politely. It arrives in waves that knock the breath out of you. Some mornings I woke already crying. Others I woke numb, staring at the ceiling until the nurses came to roll me for skin checks. I'd stopped fighting the pain meds. They handed them out like candy. Oxycodone every 4 hours, gabapentin for the nerve fire, something for sleep that left me groggy and dreamless. I hoarded the extras again, tucking them into the elastic waistband of my sweatpants when no one was looking. Not enough to kill me, I told myself, just enough to blur the edges so the world didn't hurt so much. I barely ate. The trays came, pureed chicken, mashed potatoes the consistency of glue, Jell-O that jiggled like accusation, and I pushed them away. Weight dropped. Muscle wasted faster than it rebuilt. Carla's face grew tighter every session. "You're sabotaging yourself, Sarah," she said one afternoon after I collapsed halfway through a transfer drill. "You've got the strength. You're choosing not to use it." I looked up at her from the mat, sweat stinging my eyes. What's the point? I walk across the room, then what? Go back to an empty apartment? Pretend I'm not scarred inside and out? Pretend I didn't kill a baby and a man in the same night? She didn't flinch, just crouched beside me. "The point is you're still here, and every day you choose to stay is a day you can still change something, even if it's just one small thing." I didn't answer. I let them wheel me back to my room and spent the rest of the day in bed, curtains drawn, refusing visitors. Jenna called. I told the nurse to say I was sleeping. Mark sent flowers, white lilies. The card said, "Thinking of you." I had them thrown out. Rock bottom doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. It's refusing the walker because standing hurts too much emotionally. It's staring at the pill bottle wondering how many would be enough. It's realizing you've stopped hoping and started waiting for the pain to win, for the body to give up, for someone to finally let you go. That's where I was when she came. I was dozing in the recliner, half sitting, half slumped, when the nurse knocked softly. "Sarah, you have a visitor. She says it's important." I assumed Jenna, or maybe Dr. Ellis checking in unannounced. I muttered something like, "Fine," eyes still closed. The door opened. Slow step-foots. No familiar perfume, no hurried sister energy. Just quiet. I opened my eyes. She was older than I'd pictured, late 50s, maybe 60. Gray hair pulled into a loose bun, lines etched deep around her mouth and eyes. She wore a navy cardigan over a plain blouse, hands clasped in front of her like she was afraid to take up space. Her eyes were red, but dry now, steady. "I'm Ellen Caldwell," she said, voice soft, almost a whisper. "Ethan's mother." My stomach dropped through the floor. Every muscle locked. I couldn't breathe. She didn't move closer, just stood by the door. "I know I shouldn't be here. I know you probably hate me, or him, or both. I almost didn't come, but I needed to see you, to see that you're still breathing." I stared at her. Words wouldn't come. Rage bubbled. How dare she? mixed with something else. Pity, confusion, guilt. She took one careful step forward. My son took your life away that night. I know that. I live with it every second. He was drunk. He was stupid. He was my boy. And he's gone. Her voice cracked on the last word, but she steadied it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even ask for it. I just wanted you to know he wasn't a monster. He was a kid who made the worst mistake of his life. And he paid for it. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellow legal pad, edges worn. She held it out. I didn't take it at first. My hand shook when I finally did, unfolded it slowly. Ethan's handwriting. Sloppy, boyish. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I've been screwing up. The drinking, the fights. I keep promising to stop, and I keep failing. I hate who I've become. Tomorrow I'm calling that rehab place you found. I'm going to get clean. For real this time. I want to be someone you can be proud of again. If something happens before then, just know I love you, and I'm sorry for everything. Even. I read it twice, then a third time. Tears blurred the ink. Helen watched me. He wanted to change, she said quietly. He just didn't get the chance. Something inside me broke open. Not anger, not exactly. Grief. For him. For her. For hope. For the version of myself that died on that highway. I started crying. Silent at first, then deep, wrenching sobs that pulled at every healing bone. Helen stepped closer, hesitated, then sat on the edge of the recliner's arm, careful not to touch me. She cried too. Quiet. We sat like that for a long time. Two mothers who'd lost children, one born, one unborn, both taken by the same night. When the tears slowed, she spoke again. You're still here, Sarah. That's something. Maybe it doesn't feel like a gift right now, but it is. She stood. I won't come back unless you ask, but if you ever want to talk, my number's on the back of the letter. She left as quietly as she'd come. I sat there holding Ethan's words until my fingers cramped. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I reached for the call button. When the nurse came, I asked for my pain meds to be cut back. No extras, no hoarding. That night I flushed the hidden pills down the toilet, watched them swirl away. I told Dr. Ellis everything the next session. The baby, the affair, the guilt, the visitor. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You're grieving multiple losses at once. That's heavy. But you're naming them now. That's the beginning of carrying them instead of letting them crush you." I didn't feel later. Not yet. But I felt present. The next morning, I asked Carla for the parallel bars again. I took 8 steps, then 10. Not because I believed in miracles, because 2 mothers had sought together in the same pain, and neither of us ran away. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to keep going. One breath, one step, one more day.
Month 5 felt like drowning in slow motion. The rehab wing had become too familiar. The same scuffed linoleum floors, the same motivational posters about one day at a time that I wanted to rip down, the same fluorescent hum that drilled into my skull 24 hours a day. My body was progressing on paper. I could stand for 30 seconds unassisted, take 6 shuffling steps with the walker before my legs turned to rubber. Carla called it functional gains. I called it torture with documentation. But inside, I was unraveling. The revelation about Hope, the baby I'd lost without ever knowing her heartbeat, had hollowed me out. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a tiny, unfinished life erased in the same instant metal tore through my car. Grief doesn't announce itself politely. It arrives in waves that knock the breath out of you. Some mornings I woke already crying. Others I woke numb, staring at the ceiling until the nurses came to roll me for skin checks. I'd stopped fighting the pain meds. They handed them out like candy. Oxycodone every 4 hours, gabapentin for the nerve fire, something for sleep that left me groggy and dreamless. I hoarded the extras again, tucking them into the elastic waistband of my sweatpants when no one was looking. Not enough to kill me, I told myself, just enough to blur the edges so the world didn't hurt so much. I barely ate. The trays came, pureed chicken, mashed potatoes the consistency of glue, jello that jiggled like accusation, and I pushed them away. Weight dropped. Muscle wasted faster than it rebuilt. Carla's face grew tighter every session. "You're sabotaging yourself, Sarah," she said one afternoon after I collapsed halfway through a transfer drill. "You've got the strength. You're choosing not to use it." I looked up at her from the mat, sweat stinging my eyes. What's the point? I walk across the room, then what? Go back to an empty apartment? Pretend I'm not scarred inside and out? Pretend I didn't kill a baby and a man in the same night? She didn't flinch, just crouched beside me. The point is, you're still here, and every day you choose to stay is a day you can still change something, even if it's just one small thing. I didn't answer. I let them wheel me back to my room and spent the rest of the day in bed, curtains drawn, refusing visitors. Jenna called. I told the nurse to say I was sleeping. Mark sent flowers, white lilies. The card said, "Thinking of you." I had them thrown out. Rock bottom doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. It's refusing the walker because standing hurts too much emotionally. It's staring at the pill bottle, wondering how many would be enough. It's realizing you've stopped hoping and started waiting for the pain to win, for the body to give up, for someone to finally let you go. That's where I was when she came. I was dozing in the recliner, half sitting, half slumped, when the nurse knocked softly. "Sarah, you have a visitor. She says it's important." I assumed Jenna, or maybe Dr. Ellis checking in unannounced. I muttered something like, "Fine," eyes still closed. The door opened. Slow steps. No familiar perfume, no hurried sister energy. Just quiet. I opened my eyes. She was older than I'd pictured. Late 50s, maybe 60. Gray hair pulled into a loose bun, lines etched deep around her mouth and eyes. She wore a navy cardigan and a plain blouse, hands clasped in front of her like she was afraid to take up space. Her eyes were red, but dry now, steady. "I'm Ellen Caldwell," she said, voice soft, almost a whisper. "Ethan's mother." My stomach dropped through the floor, every muscle locked. I couldn't breathe. She didn't move closer, just stood by the door. "I know I shouldn't be here. I know you probably hate me, or him, or both. I almost didn't come. But I needed to see you, to see that you're still breathing." I stared at her. Words wouldn't come. Rage bubbled. How dare she? Mixed with something else. Pity? Confusion? Guilt? She took one careful step forward. "My son took your life away that night. I know that. I live with it every second. He was drunk. He was stupid. He was my boy. And he's gone." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she steadied it. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even ask for it. I just wanted you to know he wasn't a monster. He was a kid who made the worst mistake of his life, and he paid for it." She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellow legal pad, edges worn. "He wrote this a few days before. It was in his truck. The police gave it to me. I thought maybe you should see it." She held it out. I didn't take it first. My hand shook when I finally did. Unfolded it slowly. Ethan's handwriting, sloppy, boyish. "Mom, I'm sorry. I know I've been screwing up. The drinking, the fights. I keep promising to stop, and I keep failing. I hate who I've become. Tomorrow, I'm calling that rehab place you found. I'm going to get clean, for real this time. I want to be someone you can be proud of again. If something happens before then, just know I love you and I'm sorry for everything. Ethan." I read it twice, then a third time. Tears blurred the ink. Ellen watched me. "He wanted to change," she said quietly. "He just didn't get the chance." Something inside me broke open. Not anger, not exactly. Grief, for him, for her, for hope, for the version of myself that died on that highway. I started crying, silent at first, then deep, wrenching sobs that pulled at every healing bone. Ellen stepped closer, hesitated, then sat on the edge of the recliner's arm, careful not to touch me. She cried too, quiet. We sat like that for a long time, two mothers who'd lost children, one born, one unborn, both taken by the same night. When the tears slowed, she spoke again. "You're still here, Sarah. That's something. Maybe it doesn't feel like a gift right now, but it is." She stood. "I won't come back unless you ask, but if you ever want to talk, my number's on the back of the letter." She left as quietly as she'd come. I sat there, holding Ethan's words until my fingers cramped. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I reached for the call button. When the nurse came, I asked for my pain meds to be cut back. No extras, no hoarding. That night, I flushed the hidden kills down the toilet, watched them swirl away. I told Dr. Ellis everything the next session. The baby, the affair, the guilt, the visitor. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You're grieving multiple losses at once. That's heavy, but you're naming them now. That's the beginning of carrying them instead of letting them crush you." I didn't feel lighter, not yet, but I felt present. The next morning, I asked Carla for the parallel bars again. I took 8 steps, then 10, not because I believed in miracles, because 2 mothers had sat together in the same pain and neither of us ran away. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to keep going. 1 breath, 1 step, 1 more day.
By month 7, the hospital had started to feel less like a prison and more like a launch pad. I wasn't discharged yet. Insurance and doctors wanted 1 more set of surgeries to stabilize the pelvis hardware, but I could walk short distances with forearm crutches. Not gracefully, not fast, but forward. Each step was a small rebellion against the night that tried to erase me. The first big confrontation came with Mark. He'd been texting Jenna, asking for updates, sending money for whatever she needs. She showed me the messages one rainy afternoon while we sat in the courtyard. The sky was the color of old steel, but the air smelled clean, like wet concrete and possibility. "He wants to see you," she said carefully. "Says he's sorry. Again." I stared at the brick wall across from us. Ivy climbed it in stubborn green lines. He can be sorry from a distance. But the next day he showed up anyway. No flowers this time. Just him in a gray hoodie, hands shoved in pockets, looking like he hadn't slept properly since October. The nurse let him in after I nodded. Once, curt. He stood by the door like he was afraid the floor might give way. "Sarah?" I was in the recliner, crutches propped beside me. I didn't invite him to sit. "I know you hate me," he started, voice low, rough. "I deserve it. I cheated. I lied. I checked out long before you did. And then, the crash. I should have been there. I should have..." "Stop." I cut him off. "I don't need your guilt trip. I've got enough of my own." He swallowed hard. "I just want to say I'm sorry. For all of it. For not being the husband you deserved. For making you feel alone even when I was in the same room." I looked at him. Really looked. The man I'd married at 25, full of promises and late-night talks about the future. The man who'd slowly turned into a stranger who came home smelling like someone else. The man who'd sat by my bed in the ICU looking wrecked, but never quite wrecked enough to change. "I don't forgive you," I said quietly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm done carrying your mistakes. Save the apologies for someone who still cares what you think." He nodded slowly, like the words had weight. "Fair. I hope you get better. Really better. Not just the body. All of it." I didn't answer. He lingered a moment longer, then turned and left. The door clicked shut behind him. That night I called my lawyer, Rachel. "File the papers. No fault divorce. I don't want anything from him. Not alimony, not the apartment. Just out." She didn't argue. "I'll have them ready by Friday." Walking out of the lawyer's office 2 weeks later, on crutches, slow, deliberate, felt like shedding dead skin. The air outside was crisp, early spring. I stood on the sidewalk for a long minute, letting the wind hit my face. No tears, no drama, just quiet relief. The marriage was over. Clean break. Done. The lawsuit was next. Ethan's family had pushed hard at first.
wrongful death, negligence, claims that I'd been distracted. Rachel showed me the filings. My stomach twisted reading the accusations. But the evidence was ironclad. Dash cam from the semi behind us, blood alcohol report, speed estimates. Ethan had crossed the line, literally and figuratively. We settled out of court in late March. Not a huge amount, but enough that his family could walk away without bankrupting themselves on legal fees. I didn't want their money. I told Rachel to donate it, all of it, to Mothers Against Drunk Driving and a local fund for trauma survivors. She handled the paperwork. When it was done, she called me. It's finished. Check cleared. Funds transferred. I sat on my hospital bed, phone to my ear, staring at the wall. Thank you. You okay? I exhaled. Yeah. It feels right. Not good. Just right. Justice isn't tidy. It doesn't erase the hole in Ellen's life or the one in mine, but it closes a chapter, lets you turn the page without the paper tearing. The hardest visit came last. I asked Jenna to drive me to the crash site, early April. The highway looked different in daylight, wider, less menacing. She pulled over on the shoulder near mile marker 112. Yellow tape was long gone. Skid marks had faded to ghosts under new asphalt patches, but I knew the spot. The guardrail still bore a dent, paint scraped off in a long silver scar. I got out on crutches. Jenna stayed by the car, giving me space. I walked, slow, painful, until I stood where my car had landed upside down. Rain had washed most of the glass away months ago, but bits still glittered in the gravel like cruel confetti. I lowered myself to the ground, crutches propped beside me, and sat on the cold shoulder. The wind moved through the trees. Cars whooshed past. I spoke to them both. To Hope, I'm sorry I didn't get to hold you. I'm sorry your first home was a place of fear and metal, but I carry you. Every step, every scar. You're part of me forever. To Ethan, I don't hate you. Not anymore. You were young, lost, trying to change. I wish you'd had the chance. I wish I'd seen you sooner. I'm sorry, too, for whatever part I played in that split second. Tears came then, quiet ones. They dripped onto the gravel and disappeared. Closure isn't a Hollywood moment. No swelling music, no sudden lightness. It's messy, imperfect. You sit in the dirt where your life almost ended, whisper to ghosts, and then you stand up again. Jenna helped me back to the car. I didn't speak the whole drive home. That May, I opened my journal. I wrote one line. I faced the past today, and it didn't kill me. The next morning, I asked Carla for longer walks. 25 feet, then 50. My legs burned. My back ached. But I kept moving. The past wasn't gone. It never would be. But I wasn't running from it anymore. I was walking through it. One deliberate, scarred step at a time.
Month 9 arrived like a slow exhale after holding my breath for too long. The calendar on the wall in my rehab room had little red X's marching across it. Each one a day survived, a step taken, a night I didn't reach for the hidden pills. I could walk unaided now for short stretches, 20, 30 feet, before the pelvis hardware reminded me it was still there, grinding like an unwelcome guest. Crutches stayed in the corner most days, more security blanket than necessity. Carla had started calling me the comeback kid, with that half smile she reserved for patients who surprised her. Friends, old ones from before the crash, began drifting back in. Text first, then awkward visits with takeout coffee and forced cheer. "You look amazing," they'd say, eyes flicking to the scar on my cheek, then away. "So strong." I smiled, nodded, thanked them. But inside, I felt like a fraud. I wasn't back. Not the Sarah they remembered, the one who laughed too loud at bad jokes, planned weekend getaways on a whim, danced in the kitchen while cooking pasta. That woman had been replaced by someone quieter, more watchful, someone who flinched at sudden loud noises and still woke up tasting metal from phantom blood. They saw progress. I saw the gaps. The limp I couldn't quite hide, the way my right hand sometimes trembled when I held a cup too long, the silence that followed when someone asked, "So what's next?" I didn't have an answer. Rehab would end soon. Discharge papers were being prepared. I'd need an apartment, something ground floor, no stairs, maybe in the city so Jenna could check on me. Then what? Go back to marketing? Pretend the last year hadn't rewritten every line of my life? I was sitting in the courtyard one late May afternoon, sun warm on my face, birds arguing in the trees, when the envelope arrived. Jenna brought it herself, eyes bright in a way I hadn't seen since before the crash. She sat on the bench beside me, handed me a thick cream-colored envelope with a New York City return address. No stamp, just hand-delivered. "Open it," she said. I slid my finger under the flap. Inside, a letter on heavy paper, logo of a small but respected publishing house I'd vaguely heard of, Greystone Press. They specialized in memoirs, survivor stories, books that didn't sugarcoat pain. Dear Sarah, your sister shared excerpts from the journal you've been keeping during recovery. We were deeply moved by your voice, raw, honest, unflinching. The way you weave grief, guilt, and resilience without forcing redemption feels rare and necessary. We'd like to discuss the possibility of turning your writings into a full manuscript. We believe your story has the power to reach others who feel broken beyond repair. There's no pressure, just an open door if you choose to walk through it. Sincerely, Elena Marquez, Senior Editor. I read it twice, then handed it to Jenna without speaking. She grinned. I sent them the pages, the ones about Hope, about Ellen, about the parallel bars and Max. I didn't ask permission because I knew you'd say no. I stared at her. Anger flickered, brief, hot, then faded. You had no right. I know. She didn't apologize, just met my eyes. But I watched you write those pages like they were keeping you alive. You poured everything into them, and they're good, Sarah, really good. Not polished, not pretty, but true. And the world needs more true right now. I looked down at the letter again. My hands shook, not from weakness this time, but from something else. Possibility? Fear? Both? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the recliner with the battery candle flickering, journal open on my lap. I reread the entries Jenna had sent. They were messy, ink smudged from tears, sentences trailing off mid-thought, but they were mine. Every scar, every nightmare, every small victory captured in black ink on cheap paper. I thought about the woman I'd been before, always performing, always saying yes when I wanted to say no, always smiling through the cracks. The crash had stripped that away, left me raw, exposed. But in the exposure, something real had grown. The writing hadn't just been therapy, it had been proof I was still here, still feeling, still fighting. The next morning, I called Elena Marquez. Voicemail. I left a message, short, nervous. This is Sarah, Jenna's sister. I got your letter. I think I want to talk. She called back within the hour. Warm voice, no rush. We talked for 40 minutes. She asked questions, not about the crash details, but about why I wrote, how it felt to name Hope, how Ellen's visit changed the shape of my guilt. She listened like the words mattered. At the end, she said, "We don't want a polished, inspirational story. We want yours. The hard parts, the ugly parts, the parts where you almost quit. If you're willing, we'll work with you. Editor, structure, timeline. No deadline pressure, just your pace." I hung up and sat there, heart pounding. The decision wasn't dramatic. No thunderclap, no tears, just a quiet yes inside my chest. I would say yes. Not for fame. I didn't want book tours or talk shows. Not for money, though the advance would help with rent and therapy copays. I said yes for purpose. To turn the wreckage into something that might reach one person sitting in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if breathing is worth it. To prove that survival isn't the end of the story, it's the messy, painful, beautiful beginning of a different one. I told Jenna first. She hugged me so hard my ribs protested. Then Carla. She teared up, first time I'd seen it, and said, "About damn time you gave the world something back." I started outlining that week, not a formal proposal, just pages of notes, chapter ideas, moments I hadn't written yet, the night I flushed the pills, the day I sat on the highway shoulder, the way Max's fur felt when I buried my face in it. The one decision, to say yes to the book, didn't fix everything. Pain still flared, nightmares still came, loneliness still crept in on quiet nights, but it gave the days shape, a reason to get up besides physical therapy, a reason to keep the scars visible instead of hiding them under long sleeves. I wasn't whole yet. Maybe I never would be, but I was writing myself back into existence. One word, one page, one stubborn choice at a time. And that choice, it changed everything.
Discharge day came in late June.
almost 9 months to the day since the rain-soaked highway flipped my world. The paperwork felt anticlimactic. Signatures, instructions for follow-up PT, a folder of prescriptions I'd probably never fill completely. Jenna helped pack my few belongings, clothes that finally fit again, the battery candle, Max's photo Lisa had printed for me, the thick stack of journal pages now dog-eared and ink-skinned. I walked out of the rehab center on my own 2 feet. No crutches, no walker. Just me, a slight limp I'd learned to live with, and a duffel slung over one shoulder. I'd chosen a small 1-bedroom in Brooklyn, Bushwick, close enough to Jenna but far enough from the old apartment I'd shared with Mark. Ground floor, no stairs, rent-controlled, thanks to a friend of a friend hookup. The place was bare when I moved in. White walls, scuffed hardwood, a single window overlooking a narrow alley where cats fought over trash bags at dawn. I liked it. It didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't. Neither did I anymore. The first few weeks were strange. Silence hit hardest at night. No beeping monitors, no nurses checking vitals, no roommate in the next bed snoring. I'd wake at 3 a.m., heart racing, convinced the ceiling was about to cave in like the roof of my car. I'd light the candle, sit on the floor with my back against the bed, and breathe until the panic ebbed. Some nights I called Jenna at odd hours. She never sounded annoyed, just sleepy and steady. "You're okay," she'd say. "You're home." I started walking every morning. Nothing ambitious, just loops around the block at first, then farther. Central Park became my goal. I'd take the subway, standing the whole ride, gripping the pole like it owed me something, get off at 86th Street and walk the paths near the reservoir, early, before the joggers and tourists crowded in. The air smelled like cut grass and coffee carts. Ducks glided on the water, unbothered. I'd stop on a bench, watch them, and feel something close to peace. My limp was still there, always would be, but it didn't embarrass me anymore. It was proof I'd come back from somewhere most people never return. People noticed the scars less than I expected, or maybe they just got better at pretending not to. A barista once asked about the one on my cheek, casual, curious, not pitying. "Car accident," I said. "Long story." She nodded, handed me my latte, and said, "Glad you're still here." Simple, kind, no interrogation. I smiled, real this time, and meant it. Dating crept in slowly, awkward, humbling. I downloaded an app on a whim one rainy Sunday, mostly to prove I could, swiped left on anyone who looked too polished, too perfect, matched with a guy named Leo, 34, graphic designer, divorced, dry sense of humor. Our first date was coffee in a tiny shop near my place. I wore a scarf to cover the worst of the neck scar, but halfway through I pulled it off. "This is me," I said. "Take it or leave it." He looked, really looked, then smiled. "I like the map. Tells a story." We talked for 3 hours. No pity, no savior complex, just 2 people who'd both been through enough to recognize the weight in each other's eyes. We kissed goodbye, soft, tentative. My body remembered how to want again. Not perfectly, not without hesitation, but enough to feel alive. Therapy continued, once a week now, virtual from my couch. Dr. Ellis and I worked on boundaries, on letting go of the need to punish myself forever. "You're allowed joy," she said one session. "It doesn't betray Hope, it honors her." Hope's due date came in mid-July. I didn't plan anything big, just bought a small white candle, real this time, and lit it on the windowsill at dusk. I sat cross-legged on the floor, watched the flame dance, and let the tears come. No sobs, just quiet release. I spoke to her like always. "I'm building something here, little one. A life. It's messy, it's scarred, but it's mine, and you're in every part of it." When the candle burned low, I blew it out gently, smiled through wet lashes, and then stood up and kept moving. The book took shape in stolen hours, mornings mostly, coffee strong, laptop open on the kitchen table. Elena sent gentle deadlines, chapters every few weeks. I wrote about the ICU nights, the mirror moment, Ellen's visit, the parallel bars. I wrote about hope without flinching, about Ethan's letter, about walking out of the lawyer's office and feeling lighter than I had in years. The words came easier now, not polished but honest. Elena's notes were kind but sharp. Dig deeper here. Show us the fear. I did, and each revision felt like peeling off another layer of armor I didn't need anymore. I met people who didn't know before Sarah, neighbors who waved when I passed, a woman in my building who invited me to a rooftop barbecue, strangers on the subway who smiled without staring. I laughed more, real laughs, the kind that start in your belly and surprise you. I felt desire again, not just physical, but for life, for sunrises, for bad movies, for the way coffee smells at 7 a.m. in a quiet kitchen. The strength wasn't in erasing the scars, it was in wearing them, in looking at the jagged line across my cheek in the mirror and thinking, yeah, that happened, and I'm still here. I wasn't fixed. Some days the limp ached worse. Some nights the nightmares still came. Rain, glass, flipping. But I woke up grateful instead of angry. Grateful for the breath, for the ache that proved I was alive, for the second chance I almost threw away. Rebuilding wasn't glamorous. No montage music, just one small choice after another. Get out of bed, walk the block, write the page, kiss the guy, light the candle, keep going. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, the pieces started fitting together, not into the old shape, into something new, stronger in the broken places, scarred and whole.
2 years after the crash, October 15th, 2025, I ran a 5K. Not fast, not pretty. My left leg still drags a little on the final stretch, and the pelvis hardware protests when the pavement's uneven. But I crossed the finish line in Central Park on a crisp fall morning, lungs burning, cheeks flushed, wearing a faded gray t-shirt that read "Survivor" in bold white letters across the chest. Jenna waited at the end with a cheap medal on a ribbon and a ridiculous bouquet of sunflowers. She screamed my name like I'd just won the Olympics. I laughed until I cried, then hugged her so hard we both almost fell over. The book came out 6 months earlier. Greystone Press gave it a simple title, Still Here. No subtitle promising miracles or easy answers, just those 2 words on a matte black cover with a faint abstract scar running diagonally across it, like someone had dragged a fingernail through wet paint. Inside were my words, raw, unfiltered, the ICU nights, the hidden pills, Hope's candle, Ellen's letter, Ethan's apology scrawled on yellow legal paper, the parallel bars where I cried and kept going anyway. Elena, my editor, fought to keep every jagged edge. "Don't soften it," she said. "People need the truth, not a fairy tale." It didn't hit bestseller lists, it didn't get movie deals or morning show slots, but it found its people. Emails started arriving within weeks of release. Slow at first, then a steady stream. Women in hospital beds scrolling on their phones at 2 a.m., men who'd lost someone to drunk driving and didn't know how to forgive, teenagers texting their moms after reading the chapter about hope. One message stopped me cold. "I'm in the same rehab wing you described. Same beeps, same smell. I read your book last night instead of taking the extra pills. Thank you for showing me it's possible to keep going, even when it hurts like hell." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried for 20 minutes. Not sad tears, grateful ones, the kind that wash something clean. I still have nightmares, not every night anymore, but often enough that I keep the battery candle on the nightstand. Sometimes it's the rain and the headlights, sometimes it's Hope's face, small, perfect, dissolving into glass. I wake gasping, reach for the light, and sit there breathing until my heart slows. Leo, yes, we're still together, slow and steady, doesn't try to fix it. He just rolls over, pulls me close, and lets me shake until I'm ready to talk. Or not talk. He's good at the quiet parts. I run most mornings now. Not far, 3-4 miles around the neighborhood or up to Prospect Park when I feel strong. The limp is part of the rhythm. I don't fight it. I lean into it. My body isn't what it was before, but it's mine, stronger in the places it broke. I've got new scars, small ones from skin grafts, a thin line from the final pelvis surgery. But the big one on my cheek, I stopped covering it with makeup months ago. It's a map of where I've been. I catch people looking sometimes. I meet their eyes and smile. Most look away politely. A few smile back. The divorce finalized quietly. Mark moved to Chicago, new job, new life. We don't speak. No bad blood left, just distance. I don't hate him anymore. I don't love him either. He's just a chapter that ended. I'm okay with that. Ellen and I stay in touch. Not often. Christmas cards, the occasional text on the anniversary. She sent me a photo last year. Her grandson, born 6 months after Ethan died. A chubby toddler with his grandfather's eyes. She wrote on the back, "Life keeps going, even when we don't think it should." I keep the photo tucked in my journal. I volunteer now, once a month at a trauma support group in Manhattan. I don't lead. I just sit in the circle and listen. When someone new comes in, eyes hollow, voice small, I share a piece of my story. Not the whole thing, just enough. I flatlined twice. I lost a baby I didn't know I had. I almost lost myself. But I'm still here. And you can be too. Some cry, some nod. A few hug me afterward, like I handed them oxygen. I walk out of those meetings lighter every time. The one decision that changed everything wasn't surviving the crash. It wasn't even saying yes to the book. It was choosing every single day to keep going, to get out of bed when the weight felt impossible, to write one more sentence when the words hurt, to walk one more block when my legs begged to stop, to let someone hold me without flinching, to light the candle for hope, and then blow it out and keep living. If you're reading this and you feel broken, shattered in ways that seem permanent, hear me. Survival is brutal. It's ugly. It's lonely. But it's not the end. The real miracle isn't that I lived through the crash that should have killed me. It's that I chose to live afterward. Every damn day. I still flinch at loud trucks. I still check my rearview mirror too often. I still whisper to hope when the moon is full and the house is quiet. But I also laugh until my sides hurt. I kiss Leo good morning and mean it. I run until my lungs burn and my heart sings. I write. I listen. I show up. The crash didn't end me. It stripped away the old life, the numbness, the pretending, the fear of being alone, and forced me to build something real, something scarred, something stubborn, something mine. This story isn't finished. No one's is. There are still hard days ahead. There will be more tears, more anniversaries that sting, more moments when the cast reaches out and grabs my ankle. But I'll keep walking, keep writing, keep breathing, because I survived. And every day since has been proof that survival isn't given, they're chosen. One breath, one step, one sunrise at a time. And I choose them all.